Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have seen the definition of Banach space. What is the definition says? Every complete normed linear space is called as a Banach space. This name of the given space is given as Banach in the honor of a mathematician, Stefan Banach. He was a Polish mathematician. We have seen some life history also. Okay. Then we have moved towards the examples. The first example we have seen is a real linear space and complex linear space. Both are the Banach spaces under the norm. Norm x is equals to mod of x. Mod of x is actually we were considering the shortest distance of a given point from the origin. That is a vector joined to the origin by the straight line. In both the spaces I have shown you how it is going to work. On the real line it will be a straight line joining x, the vector x and the origin 0. Similarly in the complex plane as well. In order to prove these two are the Banach spaces, two steps to be followed actually. In the first step, we have to show that the corresponding spaces are normed linear spaces. That is, whatever the norm given is going to satisfy the four conditions of norm definition. That one has to check first, and in the second step, one has to go for the completeness definition. Right? Therefore, we have verified the four conditions of norm so that R and C both become non-linear spaces, but already we know that these two spaces are the complete spaces. Hence, we can write directly R and C are the Banach spaces. Actually, these two are the complete spaces is given to be a homework. I hope all of you have completed the homework, right? Then later we have seen some famous inequalities which are helpful for us in order to prove the next examples related to n-dimensional spaces. The inequalities are Holder's inequality and Minkowski's inequality. This is related to n-tuple vectors and if the norm defined like this, norm p equal to summation norm xi raised to p raised to 1 by p. If we put the value of p is equal to 1, what will happen? I think we have discussed this in the last lecture as well. If I put the value of p equal to 1, what will be the this norm is going to work? How the norm is going to work? This is norm 1 of x is equal to summation mod xi raised to 1 bracket raised to 1 upon 1. Right? No. Therefore, what it is going to tell us simply mod x1 mod x2 addition simply no plus mod xn. This is just the addition of the respective coordinates in the modulus. Okay. In two-dimensional spaces, how we have seen how this distance is being calculated. Right now, similarly, it will be in the n-dimensional space as well. If we put the value of p is equals to 2, this will give you a distance formula in an n-dimensional space. And respectively, for every value of p integer, positive integer, it will give you one norm that we have to that we should know, right? Then, if we define a norm like this, then Holder's inequality tells us that summation modulus xi yi is this much value, right? Minkowski's inequality, similarly Cauchy's inequality. Cauchy's inequality is actually the special case of Holder's inequality by putting p is equals to 2. Later, we have seen the second example of n-dimensional spaces, Euclidean and unitary spaces, right? Euclidean if this is under Rn, unitary if it is under Cn. Okay, here it was the norm was given by the distance formula simply. The job is to prove both the spaces Rn and Cn are the Banach spaces. First step to be verified, Rn and Cn are the nonlinear spaces by verifying all those four conditions. This much we have done, and the second step we have not completed due to the insufficient time. Now we will go for the completing this previous example. Example number 2 to prove. Okay, let me continue this example. What remains to prove actually in this?
Rn and Cn are Banach spaces.
That is completeness property only. Na? Therefore, what is my aim in this? To prove that Rn, let me write for Cn only. Because if I write for Cn, it will be automatically for Rn, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me go for proving the completeness. What one has to do for completeness? We will start with one Cauchy sequence in the corresponding space, and we will prove the Cauchy sequence is convergent and converges to the point in the same space. That is what the job is. Therefore, what should I start with? Let me start with one Cauchy sequence in Cn. Right now, let me start with one Cauchy sequence in Cn. If I take any sequence in the Cn space is actually a space of n-tuple vectors, right now? Therefore, may I say every vector or every point in the sequence is an n-tuple vector? Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, here let me write, let xm be a Cauchy sequence in Cn. Okay. Therefore, what kind of sequence it will be? Or you can write the sequence x1, x2, xm and so on. Right now? Now here I will write, since each axiom, each coordinate, each point xm is an n-tuple complex or real. We were considering both the cases simultaneously. Complex or real vector. Right? Therefore, here if I take this arbitrary xm, this xm is having n tuples. Correct? No? What I am going to denote? I am going to denote n tuple of this xm as x1m, x2m, so on, xnm. Okay? Okay? Likewise, how can I write this x1? Every vector. x1 is written as x1, 1, x2, 1, x and 1. Or you can read in the reverse way. x1, 1, x1, 2, x1n. Okay? This is, and what about the nature of every term? This every individual term. If this belongs to Cn or Rn, if this n-tuple vector belongs to Cn, then what about individual coordinate? Where it belongs to, where it goes to?
Simply complex number.
Yes, it is simply complex or real, whatever is considered. So whatever is the ith coordinate I am going to consider of this vector, this ith coordinate is either a complex number or a real number. Scalar. I can write here as a scalar. That one has to understand. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let us move towards to write the definition of a Cauchy sequence. Okay. Therefore, here let me just write kth coordinate or ith coordinate I have written, so that x m is kth coordinate. Kth coordinate of x m, or you can write I also. Here I have written it. Or let me make it k. Okay. Now what the definition of Cauchy sequence is? For every epsilon greater than 0, there exists stage n such that what such that?
Mod xm minus xn less than epsilon for all mn greater than or equal to that stage n.
Is it mod or nor?
No, ma'am.
Yes, it is nor. Okay. There exists a positive integer capital N such that. What such that? For epsilon greater than 0, there exists a positive integer n such that. Can I write nor xm minus xl? I will not write n because n is the notation we were using for this n-tuple space, right? Different nor xm minus xl less than epsilon, and it is for all m l greater equal by capital N. Is it okay? Now, as of the definition is in the under root. Correct now? I'll just write the definition here. What is the definition given? Norm x is summation I equals to 1 to n mod xi square whole thing raised to half. This definition is in the under root. Therefore, let me make a square on both the sides so that the calculation will be easier. Therefore, can I write norm square of xm minus xl is less than epsilon square? Okay. Now, what is the definition? What is the definition then? You have to tell me the ith coordinate of this xm minus xl. Correct now? If x is like this, if the vector x is like this, x1, x2, somewhere here is my ith coordinate xi to xn, then we were writing a definition like this. Means you should know the ith coordinate of the corresponding vector in order to write the norm value. Likewise, what will be the ith coordinate of this vector now? Right? Ith coordinate of xm will be
xil.
Yes, it is x
xil.
m
xl.
x
xil.
n. Is it okay? And the difference was taken, and we know the difference is actually a coordinate wise difference. Correct? No? So let me put this in the modulus. Square as well. Summation I is running from 1 to n. Norm square we have written, therefore no need to take a square root. And this is less than by epsilon square, and let me call it as statement number 1. This statement will be beneficial for us to prove the next. Therefore, I have given a statement number. Now, right, where every individual term is non-negative. Where every individual term is non-negative. Therefore, may I say every individual term is less than epsilon square also? Can I write like this? Xim minus xil square less than epsilon square. What is the reason here? As total sum is sum of non-negative numbers, I write. Total sum of non-negative numbers is less than epsilon square, then each term is also less than epsilon square. Correct now? Let me take a square root on both the sides to write down. This is xim minus xil less than epsilon. Now what about this every individual we have discussed? The individual belongs to either C or R. Right? But what we have obtained? This we have obtained more of the individual. Let me write in complex number. Xim minus xil less than epsilon. Therefore, may I say whatever is this xim, a sequence of complex numbers or real number is a Cauchy sequence. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
M L greater or equal by L. Okay, so now what is my claim? This implies, this shows that the sequence of, which sequence here? Let me write xim. Okay, this sequence is a Cauchy sequence. Of complex or real numbers. For each fixed I will write. For each fixed I. For every I, this is one sequence, no? For every coordinate, it will generate one sequence. Now, we have moved from a Cauchy sequence in an n-dimensional space to a Cauchy sequence of complex or real numbers. But what is the fact known to us? complex and real number are the complete spaces. Therefore, what about the nature of this Cauchy sequence? May I say it is convergent?
Convergent.
Yes, since C or R is complete, each of these sequence to a point, say Zi in C or sequence. Therefore, the sequence is totally dependent on I. Therefore, the limit point we have taken with I. That is, if I collect the first coordinates of xm, x1m, x2m, and so on, for fixed identities, for I equal to 1, if I collect all the coordinates, it will generate one sequence. For I equals to 2, one sequence. Okay. And the first sequence of first coordinate converges to Z1, sequence of second coordinate converges to Z2 and so on. Okay. Therefore, may I write this implies what it is going to imply? Limit m tends to infinity xi m is equals to zi for I equals to, yes, 1 to n. How many coordinates we have? N coordinates.
N coordinates.
Right? Let me write this as statement number 2. Okay. Or one can write this as xim converges to zi as m tends to infinity. Anything you can write. Now, the sequence, okay, this is one coordinate of your xm. Okay, this is one coordinate of your xm which converges to, where the corresponding sequence converges to zi. What remains to show simply then? The sequence xm, the sequence of n tuple vector converges coordinate wise. Okay, let me just try to show you like this. This is my original sequence xm having how many coordinates? Say, let me write the coordinates: x1m, x2m. Somewhere here we have written xim, and lastly this is xnm. Right? This is Cauchy in Tn. If every coordinate is an n-tuple vector. Now what we have shown, this sequence of ith coordinates, the sequence of ith coordinate converges to zi. Therefore, what about this sequence x1m? This converges to z2 and this converges to zn. So what is my job to show now? What is my job to show that this xm converges to this vector, n tuple vector, and let me denote it by z. Okay, that is, we were collecting all the limit points of these converging sequences. We will put it in one bracket. It will be an n tuple vector. Let me name it as xm, and the job is to show that xm converges to z. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Here I just write now. We now show that the Cauchy sequence xm xm converges to the point. Which point? Say z. And what are the coordinates? z1, z2 to zn. Okay. And this belongs to Cn or Rn. No. Why? Because this each Zi is in C or R. Therefore, if I collect the all n tuple vectors Zi, all vectors Zi in C, it will be a vector in Cn. Okay? Okay? That is actually what I write. That is to prove coordinate wise convergence. Right now? Coordinate wise convergence. Now to prove this coordinate wise convergence, what we will do, whatever this equation number 1 we have taken, we will put L tends to infinity. This L we will take tends to infinity because m l greater or equal by n we have taken, right? What will happen if I put L tends to infinity? We already know that for M tends to infinity, xim converges to zi. Then what about L tends to infinity? Xil
Z.
converges to zi again. L is simply a parameter, no? Dummy variable, you can change it. Therefore, what the equation here we will get? Xim minus zi less than epsilon square. Correct? But here I will just write to prove this. Let L tends to infinity in statement number 1. So therefore, directly I will write summation I equals to 1 to n mod of xim. This will tends to zi. Okay, less than epsilon square. Reason here I will write limit L tends to infinity xil is zi from 2. Right now, this is statement number 2. Right? Now, what should be my next step? Oh, sorry, bracket square, I forgot. Now, look at this. What kind of norm it is? This xim minus zi is the ith coordinate of a vector xm minus z. Right now, this xim minus zi is the ith coordinate of xm minus z. How? Let us check. How we have written xm? x1m, x2m, xim, xnm, right? How we have written z? z1, z2, zi, zn, right? Therefore, if I take a subtraction xm minus z, what will be the ith coordinate? Xim minus z. And square of the ith coordinate with summation with under root is actually a norm definition of xm minus z. Therefore, may I write directly this as norm square of xm minus z less than epsilon square. This is by definition. Right? And taking a square root on both the sides, norm of xm minus z less than epsilon. What we have proved then? We have proved that the Cauchy sequence converges to Z, right now? So here I will write m greater than or equals to n only because L tends to infinity we have already taken. For may I write this implies the Cauchy sequence xm converges to Z belongs to Cn or Rn, right? Hence, Cn into bracket I will write or Rn are complete spaces. Now step number 1 says that both are the nonlinear spaces. Step 2 tells us both are hello.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
I lost my connection, right?
Yes, ma'am. Voice break होते
From
थोड़ा.
which from which is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think we have missed from this step, no, letting n tend to infinity.
No, ma'am. Complete झालं.
झालं होतं ना, माझ्या शेवटचं झालं मला वाटतं. Okay, this is actually ith coordinate of a vector xm minus z. Here I have written both the vectors xm and z. So this definition gives you norm square of xm minus z less than epsilon square. Taking square root, it gives you norm of xm minus z. Thus, the Cauchy sequence xm converges to a point z in Cn. It proves that the Cn or Rn are the complete spaces. Hence, first step gives you nonlinear spaces. Second step gives you complete spaces. Therefore, combinedly one can say that both Cn and Rn spaces are the Banach spaces. Okay. Any doubt with this? If you have, you can ask me. Both the steps. Here, while proving the completeness property, you have to remember that we are starting with the sequence of n-tuple vectors. Then we have jumped to the sequence of scalars. And knowing real and complex field are the complete spaces, we can use this in order to prove the completeness of the Rn and Cn spaces. This is what a very simple theme we have. Okay? Any difficulty with this?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, let us move ahead towards the third example. LPN spaces. Do you know what is LP spaces? Yes? Have you heard it or not?
No, ma'am.
झालं नाही कुठेच तुम्हाला? See what I am writing? LPN denote the space of all n-tuples, space of all n-tuples x equal to x1, x2 to xn of scalars. Scalars we were writing. It may be complex scalar, it may be a real scalar. Then it is asked us to show that LPN is a Banach space. Under the norm, norm P equal to, norm P of x is equal to summation mod xi raised to P raised to 1 by P. This is what we wanted to show. We'll try to understand what is LPN spaces. According to this statement, LPN is the set of all n-tuple vectors only. Then how it is going to be different from Rn space? That we have to think. Okay. In the LPN spaces, we have to add one condition. We have to add one condition of the sum of or modulus of every coordinate raised to P is a finite value. Right? Here I will write LPN. Okay, this is the set of all n-tuple vectors. Set of all n-tuple vectors such that, what such that? Summation mod xi raised to P, ironing from 1 to n less than infinity. What is the meaning of less than infinity? The sum is finite.
Finite.
The sum is finite. Okay. What is the use of this sum is finite? If the sum is finite, we can find out the pth root. No. If this bracket is not finite, infinite value, can you find its pth root?
No, ma'am.
It is not possible to find out the pth root. Therefore, whenever we were defining a norm P, one has to ensure that this norm summation mod xi raised to P is a finite value, and out of Rn and Cn spaces, we were collecting only those vectors which has this condition, summation mod xi raised to P less than infinity. That is, this sum is finite. This sum is finite. What it is going to imply? Pth root exists, no? Pth root exists, and surely this is norm exists. Surely this is norm is going to exist. Therefore, may I say LPN space is a subspace of Cn or Rn spaces with this extra condition. That is summation mod xi raised to P less than infinity. Okay. Whatever is this n we have used here, this is the number of vectuples, n-tuple vectors. That's why the summation came from I equals to 1 to n. If I write only LP spaces, then only LP spaces, I think you might have studied. There is no restriction on the coordinates. Right? In that case, it will not be a vector, it becomes a sequence. Right? No? What
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of sequence it is? Is of this type. x1, x2, xn and so on. Can you call it as a vector? No. Now it becomes a sequence. Right? It becomes a sequence. And what is the condition on the sequence? So here I will write LP is the set of all sequences xn such that. What such that? Again this sum is less than infinity. But what is the value of your I? Runs from 1 to infinity it is. Now try to understand the change. Here it is n, here it is infinity. Because the previous space is a LPN space, n set of n tuple vectors, and this is a set of all sequences. Okay, with the same condition again, mod xi raised to p less than infinity. Okay, understood how these spaces are different from RNS spaces?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let us continue. Now our job is to show that these LPN spaces are the Banach spaces under this norm. Again, norm P summation mod xi. Now no need to check the exist, whether this norm exists or not, because as this is an LPN space, this summation mod xi raised to P less than infinity finite P root exists, therefore norm of the given vector exists. Therefore we will directly go for checking first whether it is a norm linear space and then it is completeness also. Okay, let us prove step number 1, or before that step 1. To prove that LPN is a normed linear space. 4 conditions to be verified. Let me write any two arbitrary vector for the sake of our convenience. First vector x I will take x1, x2 to xn, and second vector say y I will take with n tuples y1, y2 to yn. Okay. And what about the two operations on LPN spaces? Usual addition and scalar
Scalar multiplication.
alpha b scalar I will take. Okay. First step, first condition to prove. First, what is the first condition of norm? Norm.
Greater equals 0.
Yes, non-negative. Now let us look at this. This is positive. May I say this is sum of all non-negative terms. What about a p through? If p is equal to 2, it may be
Non-negative.
positive, negative, but we were accepting positive value. Whether positive or rather I will call non-negative. Whether non-negative values exist or not? Yes, it is exist. Okay. So here one can write obviously. Okay. Number 2. What is number 2? Sorry, norm p I have to write. Okay. Norm p of x is equal to 0 implies an implied by x is equal to
X
0, right?
equals
Let me consider one expression. Consider norm p of x is equal to 0. What definition tells us? Summation mod xi raised to p summation I running from 1 to n bracket raised to 1 by p is equal to 0. Correct? Let us take pth power on both the sides. What is the value on the right? Is it 0?
yes, ma'am.
The power. Okay. Now, sum of non-negative terms is 0. Sum of non-negative terms is 0. What is the possibility of individual term?
0.
Therefore, may I write? Mod xi raised to p is equals to 0 for all I equals to 1 to n. Okay. Again, let me take pth root. Is it mod xi is equal to 0? If mod xi is equals to 0, can I write xi is equal to 0 for all I?
Yes, ma'am.
What about a vector x?
Equals.
Yes, it is a 0 vector. Don't get confused, okay? So this is a 0 vector. You have to remember very well, this 0 is a scalar 0 and this 0 is a vector 0. Okay, so we have started with norm p of x is equals to 0 and we have proved that the corresponding vector x is equal to 0. Let us move towards the third step. Norm p of x plus y is less than or equals to norm p of x plus norm p of y. Right? Now here I will just take two cases. What happens if p is equal to 1 and p greater than 1? Yes. What happens if p equal to 1? Or I will make this as a sub case only. Case 1. P equals to 1. If p is equals to 1, what the definition changes? This is norm 1, no? Norm 1 and this is mod xi raised to 1 upon 1. Which is simply summation mod xi. Correct, na?
Yes.
Therefore, may I write this is norm x of p is simply summation mod xi. Running from 1 to n. Then what about norm p of x plus y? Norm p and norm 1 also one can write. What is norm p of x plus y? This is norm 1 of x plus y. And according to this definition, this is summation I equals to 1 to n mod of xi plus yi. Correct? Now how can I separate this model list? Is it with less equal? Mod xi plus yi is less equal to mod xi plus yi, no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Let me separate the sum as well. Right? Then what is this definition? Norm 1, no? This is norm 1 of y. I can write this as norm p for p equals to 1 as we are writing. Hence, may I say norm p of x plus y is less than or equals to 1 for p equals to 1, right? In the book, it was written obviously true. For p equals to 1, the result is obviously true. Next, let me consider the case 2 for p greater than 1. Okay, for p greater than 1, in order to prove this triangular inequality, we have to make use of Holder's inequality. And therefore, I will define another number q as well, right? In Holder's inequality, you might have remembered. We have found that number say q such that 1 by p plus 1 by q is equal to 1. So that q is also greater than 1. Q greater than 1. Therefore, I can write the value of 1 by q as 1 minus 1 by p also. Okay. Now I will start. Then norm p of x plus y. What is the definition? Summation I equals to 1 to n mod of xi plus yi raised to p bracket raised to 1 by p. Let me take p with the power on both the sides. Therefore, this is norm p of x plus y raised to p. Okay? Here you can put a bracket also for raised to p. See how I am doing the pronunciation. This is norm p of x plus y raised to p. This is not norm pp. Okay? This you have to make it clear. What is the effect on the right side? This is simply summation mod xi plus yi raised to p. Okay? It will take some 5 5 minutes extra. I think it is okay for everyone. Right? Now, what I will do, this P I will separate as 1 and P minus 1. How? I will write one term mod xi plus yi into, this is with power 1, no? And what is the power of remaining term then? This should be P minus 1, right now? P I have separated as 1 and P minus 1. Why I have separated for 1 and P minus 1? Because for raised to 1, I know the angular inequality. That is mod xi plus yi is less than or equals to mod xi plus mod yi. Now let me use the triangular inequality here to change equality to inequality. Summation I equals to 1 to n. This I can write as mod xi plus mod yi. The second term as it is, mod of xi plus yi raised to p minus 1. Okay. Now let me just multiply by the term to the bracket and let me separate the summations as well. Okay. Sum is from I equals to 1 to n. Okay. Second sum, I equals to 1 to n again, mod yi into mod of xi plus yi raised to p minus 1. Now the job is to verify the use Holder's inequality. Okay. Now here let me just use the Holder's inequality. For your sake of convenience, let me just rewrite the Holder's inequality. Norm defined with the same way, I will write directly summation I equals to 1 to n mod of xi yi. Okay, is less than or equals to. First term is summation I equals to 1 to n mod xi raised to p raised to 1 by p. This first term. Now the second term was taken in another bracket, summation I equals to 1 to n mod yi raised to q raised to 1 by q, or here I can write directly, this is norm p of x. And what about this norm? If the term is raised to p raised to 1 by p, it is norm p. Here we have raised to q raised to 1 by q. Therefore, may I write this is norm q of 1. Okay, what is the relation between p and q? 1 by p, 1 by q is equals to 1 for p greater than 1. For p greater than 1. Is it okay? Now let me use this Holder's inequality in the above step. What will be my statement then? Yes, what will be my statement? Here we have a product of these two terms now. Okay, so for the first term is separated like this. Mod xi plus yi raised to p minus 1, this is separated like this second term. Okay, let me separate. If you have a difficulty, you can ask me. Norm p of x plus y bracket raised to p is less than or equals to. Okay. First term mod xi I am separating raised to p raised to 1 by p. So this is summation I equals to 1 to n mod xi raised to p raised to 1 by p. What about the second term? This second term should be separated as raised to q raised to 1 by q. Summation I equals to 1 to n. What is my term? Mod xi plus mod y raised to p minus 1 we have already. Now we have to take raised to q and raised to whole thing raised to 1 by q. Okay? Any difficulty with this?
No, ma'am.
Now the same we have to do for the second term. From here right now this is summation I equals to 1 to n mod yi raised to p raised to 1 by p. Right? And what is the second term? Mod xi plus yi raised to p minus 1. So this second term will be as it is. raised to q raised to 1 by q. Okay. Yes, if you have any difficulty up to this, you can ask me. No? What about this first term? May I say this is norm p and this is norm p of x and this is norm p of y.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this bracket is same, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Common, right? I can take it common. Okay, before writing the next bracket, what I will do, we'll try to understand what is the value of this p minus 1 into q. We know the relation between p and q as 1 by p plus 1 by q is equal to 1, which gives me 1 by q is equals to 1 minus 1 by p. Can I write this as p minus 1 by p? Let us have a cross multiplication. What is the value of p? This is q into p minus 1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, here this q into p minus 1 I am going to replace by p now by taking common as well. Therefore, this is less than or equals to norm p of x plus norm p of y. Okay. And this term I have taken common where the bracketed term is summation I equals to 1 to n mod xi plus yi, and this is raised to p, no? And whole thing raised to
Yes, ma'am.
1 by 2. Now, anyhow, we want power and root and power to be in the reciprocal form. Therefore, here we have p. But just let me try to adjust raised to q raised to 1 by q. For this, what I will do, first I will write this norm p of x, norm p of y as it is. Okay. Now, can I adjust the term as summation I equals to 1 to n mod xi plus yi raised to p. Here what I will do, I will write this as 1 by raised to 1 by p, p raised to 1 by q, p raised to 1 by p, and the whole thing raised to p by q. Okay, everyone getting this adjustment? I am just adjusting this as raised to 1 by p raised to p by q, so that pp will get cancelled.
Yes, ma'am.
This bracket I will put raised to 1 by p, okay, into a square bracket I will write again raised to p by q. Okay, therefore if you take a multiplication here, pp cancels, no? We will remain with raised to 1 by q only, correct? A simple adjustment. Okay, simple. Now we are about to finish. This is in one bracket. Now what about this middle bracket raised to p raised to 1 by p? Is it not p, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Norm
Norm
p
p of xi plus y.
of x plus y now.
Hi, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what about raised to? This is p by q. And what we have to the left side? Norm p of x plus y raised to p. Now let me just shift the term to the left hand side. Norm p of x plus y raised to p. If I shift the term to the left, may I write the difference of their powers?
Yes, ma'am.
By q. And this is less than or equals to norm p of x plus norm p of y. What is p minus p by q? Can anyone tell me the value?
Equals to 1.
Yes, it is equals to 1. Again, let me write 1 by q as 1 minus 1 by p. Okay. So what about, let me multiply by p. P by q is p minus 1. Okay. Because if I write p minus p by q, this is 1. So to the left, we have simply norm p of x plus y less than or equals to norm p of x plus norm p of y. Hence, it is the proof of triangular inequality. Yes? Any difficulty?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Now, the last point I will keep for homework to prove that. norm P of alpha x is equals to mod alpha into norm P of x. Okay, you should try to prove this. It will be easy for us, for you to prove this. Okay, so with these four properties, one can say that the LPN spaces are the non-linear spaces. What remains to prove? Simply completeness property. But in the previous example itself, we have proved Rn and Cn are the complete spaces. You have to just reproduce the same proof. Okay, hence the LPN spaces are complete as well. Combinedly, I can say LPN spaces are the Banach spaces. Hence, it is a proof of this example. If you have any difficulty, you can ask. While giving the proof of this triangular inequality, you have to use this Holder's inequality. But while using this, you have to be very careful because someone may get confused with the P and Q relations. Right? I've tried to make it very clear and simple, but you should have a revision on this. Okay? Try to prove this fourth property. Completeness property is very similar to the previous example. You have to just reproduce. Okay? If you don't have any difficulty, let us stop it here. In the next lecture, we will go for the closed subspaces of the non-linear spaces. Okay? Let me stop here. Thank you for being with me for this lecture.